Book 3. The Council of the Ages. Chapter 2. Part 1. The stability provided by the Great Kingdom of Bordalania to its allies made development and economic prosperity spread throughout the continent. History of the Kingdoms of Nilish. Author, Baron Lahamian. Once Loranthas confirmed to the elven emissaries that the Blue Phoenix Company accepted his request. The elves gave the chest full of gold from the First Age to Deboke as promised. Then they insisted again that they must leave as soon as possible. So they hurriedly made preparations for the trip. The insistence that it was only the mercenaries who had defeated the evil mage in Tripulia made the selection of the group easy. But Deboke would not fully comply with the wishes of the elves. The original group would be joined by 2 more mercenaries. The half-elf Loranthas. Deboke did not trust his mercenaries of Orc blood, nor Gosberg. This decision was his alone. He trusted that with the presence of the half-elf he would calm the spirits and be a good interlocutor with the elves. The other new member was the dwarf Tanya, at the express request of Gosberg. Arian and Aris said goodbye to their daughter, who was left in the care of the priestess Anthera. Gosberg was happy about the trip. However, the orc-blooded ones were not as enthusiastic as the rest of their companions. Above all, Agnorok, who distrusted the intentions of the elves. Neither did Aris, since the great king of the elves had his father's head exposed as a trophy and left it to rot in the sun as revenge for the fall of Tortanel. Although the conflict had been going on for a long time, for millennia the orcs had been driven from their sacred lands by the elves. Now they would be the first orcs to set foot on the sacred ground again. They embarked 5 days after the arrival of the elven embassy. They did so before dawn to avoid a large crowd of people. Only a small group of mercenaries commanded by Deboke, Silkery and Arian's daughter with Anthera came to see them off. They carried their weapons, although in principle they would not have to fight, but you never know. They were received in a cold manner by the elves. Only the captain of the ship, Dorinders, a knight of the Order of Ellen, addressed them. The rest of the crew completely ignored them. The cabins had all the possible comforts for a warship. There was even a spacious hold so that Sabu could be in a comfortable way. The ship was very similar to Labres, but much larger. They knew very well who they had to transport. Aris, Kush and Arian said goodbye to Deboke for the last time. The ship cast off. From the deck they watched as Deboke and the others slowly disappeared into the darkness of the late night. The ship was sailing through the waters at an extraordinary speed. It seemed to float above her. Agnorok was leaning on the stern of the ship watching Almera disappear from his eyes, while the sun rose on the horizon illuminating everything. The dwarf approached the half-orc. The captain orders that we had better go down to the cabins to rest. Agnorok looked at Tanya with some disbelief. He wasn't bothering anyone. More than guests, we seem like prisoners. The dwarf did not reply to the half-orc. Agnorok spat into the sea. This is bullshit. Reluctantly he escorted the dwarf to their assigned cabins. They could not say that the trip was unpleasant. The cabins were comfortable. The ship moved quickly and was very stable despite the waves. The food was more than decent and the weather pleasant. But the treatment of the elves was very cold, even rude on most occasions. They never spoke to the mercenaries, except for the captain of the ship, and the sentences he used were the minimum necessary and brief. Even Tanya noticed the way they looked at Agnorok, Aris, and their cousins. It was one of sheer contempt. Of course, there was never the slightest provocation from the elves and the treatment was always the right one. But it was more than evident that this mission was not to their liking at all. Aris, thanks to Arian's persuasion, took it more calmly, but Agnorok and his cousins tried to avoid the elves as much as possible, something difficult on a ship. They went out on deck as little as possible, just enough to get some air, especially early in the morning and late at night, which was when there were fewer elves on the deck. The rest of the time was spent sleeping, playing cards against the Denka or keeping Sabu company, since the poor thing was much more limited in his movements. Agnorok also wrote something in his notebook. ********.